Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today, we're going to be interviewing Cherry R. How are you doing this morning, Cherry? Or I should say
I'm
this
great.
afternoon. You're great?
Yeah.
That's good to hear. So let's dive in, start talking a little bit about growing up, I guess. Start there.
Growing up, I had a pretty normal childhood up until about 10, and then my parents got divorced. Shortly thereafter, my mom got remarried, and um, me and the stepdad didn't get along too well. There was, a little bit of abuse that happened there, and um, so when I was about 14 years old, I moved out. Kind of went from couch to couch, from friends to friends' house.
You said you were
And
14.
uh-huh.
So your parents, they didn't like come looking for you when you were not coming home or anything like that?
No,
They just let you go.
yeah. And then I met Brandon. He was I was 16, he was 5 years older than me, and we started dating, and then we were like living out of his car. He was already on drugs, but I had no idea, like, 'cause I grew up in a small town
Yeah.
where there isn't anything, and um so he was like stealing, doing whatever he could to get us food, and I'm sure him drugs, and we were living in his car for a long time. I then
What was that like living in a car? Because I'd be scared. I don't know what the word must be, what I would be. How did you feel living in the car?
it it wasn't so scary for me because I had him there. To me, he was like my hero because I had no job. I'd never had a job before in my life, and he like took care of me. So um it was cold because I live in Utah, so it was super cold. But I wasn't outside, so that was a blessing. Um, then after we had saved up enough money, we ended up getting an apartment. I got pregnant, and um, my life's kind of a crazy story.
Well, let's hear
um,
it. This is the
well,
place to talk about it.
okay, so before I got pregnant, I told you that he was stealing a bunch of stuff, and he ended up meeting these two guys, and he was, anything he could get his hands on, they would buy it from him. Well, these two guys ended up being the FBI, and so he was going to, as soon as I found out that I was pregnant, he was going to go and go on a Las Vegas run with these two guys to take some cars that they had stolen down there. And so I was gonna take him up to the place, and on the way there, like, we got pulled over, but it wasn't like the normal cops. There was helicopters in the air, and like the car was surrounded by like 13 different cars. And so I was arrested by the FBI when I was 17 years old,
And this was just for stealing?
for stealing and selling stolen properties. So they had a great big like bust that was happening. It was a whole bunch of people that they busted,
Okay.
that had been doing this for years with them. And I just got kind of caught up in the crossfire, and they took me to detention where I called my mom. My mom came and got me, and I explained her, that I had nothing to do with it. Like it was Brandon. And I then told her I was pregnant, which is when she told me that she hated me, never talked to me again, type of deal. But then she let me move in with her. I lived with her for 8 months. No, I lived with her throughout my pregnancy. Then I had my son. My son was born with medical issues. And at that time, Brandon had gotten out of jail and we got back together. We got an apartment. And the first 4 months of my son's life, I lived in Primary Children's Hospital.
Well,
I
if
had
you
to
don't mind
learn
me
how.
asking, what kind of, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of medical issues did he have?
So one of his kidneys was the smallest one they'd ever seen, and one was the biggest one they'd ever seen in a baby. And then he also had problems with his intestines and stuff, so he had to have like a colostomy bag and stuff like that to begin with. So I was like a baby trying to take care of this baby that had a bunch of problems. It was very traumatizing for both of us, and Brandon was nowhere to be found. I had to learn CPR on a baby before I could bring him home. We both did. And finally, I got his brother to drag him to the hospital, and he learned it so that we could go home. And I was on pain pills after having him. And when my prescription ran out, Brandon was like, well, try this. You'll really like this.
Were you
And it was
taking the,
heroin. Huh?
were you taking the pills as prescribed, or were you abusing
Yeah,
them?
as prescribed. Um,
That's a big jump to just go from taking prescription drugs to heroin.
yeah, yep. So that's what happened. I didn't know that, after 3 days of taking heroin, you're gonna wake up sick and feel like you're gonna die and all that garbage. But so I just continued to do it every day. Started only caring about, when the next time I'm gonna get my next fix of heroin, instead of taking care of my baby with special needs. So I ended up calling my mom and telling my mom, that I was addicted to heroin and that I couldn't love my son the way he needed to be loved. So she came and got him, and um, he lived with her. Uh, and my life just got crazy. We started doing cocaine together. So we'd mix the two, and it was just sex, drugs, and rock and roll, really, to be honest with you, for the longest time. He ended up getting arrested and going to prison. I went to jail for shoplifting after he left.
What
I
did he
went
go to jail for?
for shoplifting.
Both of you?
No, he went to jail for the warrant that he had because he was running from the arrest when he got arrested from the FBI. So he ended up going to prison, and then I was out and had no way, didn't know how to hustle or anything like that because he did it all. So I went into a store and tried shoplifting. Yeah, not good at that. That's like the first and only time I've ever done that. So um I need to take a drink of my coffee, sorry.
Oh, me too.
But after that, I did 30 days in jail, got out, went straight back to heroin and cocaine, and started driving these Mexican guys. They're basically from Honduras. I started driving them to California. uh, I was 19, I think. I would drive the car to California with one of the guys, and um, the car would go into a shop, and we would like go hang out in a Mexican restaurant, and um, a few hours would go by and they'd give us the car back and I'd drive the car back. And I did this a few times until the last time I did it, I came back. They would give me drugs and money, and I came back and went in the bathroom to go do some drugs. And when I came out of the bathroom after hours being in there, there was like a humongous mountain like sized pile of drugs. And I realized, like, I mean, I knew I was bringing some drugs back, but I didn't know the quantity of the amount of drugs that I was bringing back in the car. So I didn't do that anymore. It scared me away from it. Um, I would basically sell drugs to make money to um, get more drugs. And this was just a vicious cycle for a long time. I've been in and out of jail so many times on possession charge, false information. I couldn't even tell you how many times, to be honest with you. Like it was a revolving door for me. So um, that happened for 20 something years of my life. That was my life. I'd go to jail, get out, start using drugs, start selling drugs. I was, you know, working for not good people. um, uh, that come here from a different country, and I did that for a really long time. Got I've been in some horrible situations, very scary situations. Now looking back sober, think, what the hell were you doing, but then you don't really think very much with your brain. So um, I ended up getting busted with quite a bit of stuff. Um, I went to prison in 2011, and I did 18 months at the Utah State Prison. I
Was
knew
this
as soon
also
as
for possession?
that was, yeah, for possession. That was a very scary experience, because when you get to prison, the very first thing that they have you sign is a piece of paper that's signing your body away to somebody. Like, I'd never been to prison before. I'd been to jail a million times, and in jail, all the girls would be like, I'd much rather go to prison. And I get there, and the first thing I'm having to do is sign a piece of paper giving my body away. I'm like, I'm not gonna, for the longest time, I wouldn't sign the paper. I'm like, I'm not gonna sign the paper. Like, I'm gonna walk out of here with my body. No, I don't need to sign it over to my mom or dad, but so I sat down there for the longest time, a couple hours, I'm sure, maybe 2 or 3 before I'd sign the paper. And then, you go into the cell for 8 weeks, 23-hour a day lockdown. You get out for an hour at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And you can't call anybody who's going to be awake at that early that wants to talk to you. But I had made amends with my family when I was there, wrote these letters, and I said I was going to change. But in the back of my mind, I knew
Were
that
you
I would.
working a program, or you just
No,
were saying sorry to people?
just saying sorry to people. But it wasn't honest. I knew in the back of my head still that I wasn't done, that I was going to continue doing the things that I was doing. And that's exactly what happened. I got out of prison I got a job. I was doing good. Then one of the girls from prison called me, and I went over to her. She told me, she warned me before I went there that she was using, it's like, it's okay. Like, I don't have any desire to use, and you can only go around somebody so many times before you're going to do it yourself. So that's exactly what happened. Then I was just stuck at her apartment for months, I guess. Then I went to Idaho, and I was living with the guy up there who, he's an old guy. I feel super horrible about this because I took advantage of him, but he would, give me money. He's bought me vehicles. So that in itself became an addiction to me. I would take the vehicles that he got me and drive down to Utah and pick up drugs and drive back every few days. And I did that for probably a year. And then I got tired of living in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. So I came back to Salt Lake and started selling drugs again for those people, and did that for a few more years. Altogether, I was out like 5 years.
And during
And
this time,
then,
while you're doing all this stuff, you're addicted to drugs.
yes, very, very
So you
much
were
so.
using a lot. It was
Yes,
basically you were doing all these things to feed your head.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. I would sell drugs to make money to get more drugs for myself and to sell. Then I was going to deliver something to a customer at like 3 o'clock in the morning and got pulled over. And I had a whole bunch of drugs on me. I took what I could with me into the jail, and um, I actually went in front of the judge. I was coming off of so many drugs that I actually died while I was in the jail. They had to take me to the hospital and revive me.
How did you die? Were you going through withdrawal?
Yes.
What was it, from alcohol withdrawal at all?
No, it was from heroin, methadone, oxys, roxys, all sorts of. I was on anything you could think of. I was on pretty much. But they brought me back to life and took me back to the jail. That night, I talked to my oldest son on the phone, who, I kind of skipped. I was sober for a little while. I had a couple more kids. I was married and got divorced and started doing drugs again. But um, back to where I was in jail, and I called my oldest son, and he begged me to have him send me to prison again because he didn't want, he would rather me be in there than him putting me in a box 6 feet under. So I went to church that night in the jail by myself, withdrawing. It was horrible. Talked to these two ladies, and the next day I went to court, and I had just made up my mind. They tried to give me an attorney. I told them that I didn't want an attorney. I told them that I'm guilty. You caught me, like, just, they thought I was the weirdest person ever, I'm sure. The attorney sat there and argued back and forth with me for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, look, I'm guilty. You guys got me. Like, I just want you to send me to prison. We went out into the courtroom, and the judge was going to release me on my own recognizances. And I told him, you could release me, and in a few months from now, I'll be dead. Or you could help save my life, and please send me to prison so I can get some help. And he looked at me for a few minutes and looked down, and he said, my wish to you is that one day you're not standing in front of a judge begging him to send you to prison. And then he sentenced me to prison. And the second time was way different for me. I got into my little cell that I was in for 8 weeks, and, got on my knees and prayed and just asked him to remove it from me. And it's the craziest thing, man. It's like he just flipped a switch in my brain. And ever since I walked into those doors, I have not used anything. And this month I have 5 years clean. So that's the longest I've ever had my entire life. Except for, from the age 0, from the time I was born until, 17 or no, 18, when I started using drugs. I used drugs every day until.
Was that the first time you ever used drugs? Like, was that, or did you use it younger, like experimenting?
When I was 15, I smoked weed, but that's it.
What kind of person were you while you were high?
I was a horrible person. Horrible. I wouldn't want to know me. Like I wasn't even allowed to go into my mom's house to use the bathroom. She would set a timer in her kitchen. The kitchen timers.
Yeah.
Like, I had 2 minutes in her bathroom. That's it. And if I was in there longer, she would literally have kicked the door down. So, because I would go in and get high, my mom knew. She's a smart woman, unfortunately, because I, the way I am and have been, she's learned quite a bit. So, yeah, I was a horrible person. I've done horrible things, so grateful I'm not that person today.
Yeah, no, that is an absolute great thing. So what do you think first made you ever do a drug?
Well, when I smoked weed, my big sister was doing it. We were hanging out with a bunch of friends, so really just to fit in.
Okay. So you were just trying to fit in with the crowd.
Yep.
And do you think there's anything that led to you continuing on to the point, while you were using, were there any times where you knew, I have an issue, I need to quit, and you just continued on?
Absolutely. Every day.
When was the first time you realized you had a problem?
I mean, when I started neglecting my child and, not giving him the love and attention that he deserved, that he needed, Then I knew I had a problem when I called my mom and had her come pick up my son. But the thing is with heroin, you get so sick, like deathly sick, and that scared me. I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to be sick.
So what do you do nowadays as far as keeping sober? Do you have any type of specific program? Is there anything that you do maybe as a hobby or something?
So now today, me and my other half, we own a house we bought a year ago. I run an AA meeting every Saturday for women. It's a women's meeting. It's a Zoom meeting. I do that. I sponsor other females. I have a lot of close friends that are in recovery, and I just had to, delete my old Facebook. I don't talk to anybody that I did in the past. I had to change everything. and I still live in the same place. When I was on drugs, like I tried to move out of state to get away from it. And it doesn't matter where you go. It does not matter where you go because you'll find it, you know, if that's the kind of thing that you're into and that you're looking for, you'll find it. So, and I did, but
Yeah,
today
us drug
I
addicts. Oh,
yeah,
sorry
huh?
about that. No, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just gonna say, us drug addicts, we seem to always find a way. Like you said,
It's
we'll find it. We'll
yeah,
somehow we do it,
it's facts. But
or it finds us. Sometimes it finds us.
true, true. I mean, I used to go to NA meetings on purpose, like to go and find the weakest link in the group. That's how horrible I was, like, and be because I didn't want to get high by myself or whatever. And I would find somebody who was new or whatever, and we'd start talking, and then we'd leave and go get high. It's horrible, but that's true. That's what I did. So,
So what
yeah.
kind of meetings do you run? What's I guess some of the advice you give these women when you talk to them? What are some words of encouragement that you typically would give?
You gotta, I mean, you have to be ready if you're not ready, clearly. Like, I had so many people try and, force me into it. I've had sponsees that, you know, came to the program because they got a DUI, or, they had to be there, and they asked me to be their sponsor. It lasts for about a month, and then they fall off, and I have to tell them, like, I can't continue to be your sponsor because, you know, at first I'd ask him, "Are you ready?" Well, I don't know if I really am or not. Well, until you're ready, nobody can help you. You have to be ready. You have to really want to change your life, and uh, be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Work the steps, get a sponsor, do service work. Um, you have to change everything. So, I successfully completed parole. I did all this stuff that in the past was so difficult for me to do because, you can't successfully complete parole when you're getting high. And so
Yep.
I just thought I'm never going to be able to get off parole, probation. I was only on parole for 18 months, and I was on a 1 to 15. I did a lot more time the second time than I did the first time. And, you know, I should have been on parole a lot longer, but because I did such a good job, they kicked me off way early. So I don't know. It just, if somebody's ready, it's possible. You can do it. I mean, look at me. Shit. I was a heroin addict from the time I was 18 until 40 years old. I'm 45 now. It took me that long. So
You're lucky to be alive after 20 years of heroin abuse.
seriously.
You're lucky
And
to be alive.
the shit that I've been through and seen, and it's I'm way lucky to be alive.
Yep.
So I'm grateful for that.
So I guess this is a good place to end it. My last question for you is, are there any lessons you've learned that you think you could pass on what you learned from that lesson to someone else?
Any lessons I've learned? Yeah, kids, stay away from drugs.
That's an easy one. It's a lesson.
um, you know, I've learned a lot of lessons. You're putting me on the spot. I don't know. Just, if you're ready to do the recovery thing, I would strongly suggest the 12 steps because they've helped me change my life, you know. And I used to get to step 4 or 5 where you have to tell all your garbage to another person, and I'd run away, you know. But once I did that finally, you know, when I got out of prison the second time and I actually did it, it was like a huge weight was lifted off of me, you know, just telling all my garbage to another person. Like it helped me in ways I can't even express, you know.
It helps you face yourself and your own fears.
It does. And you know, I thought I would be judged. This person's gonna judge me. I've done some horrible shit, you know, that I didn't talk about here, you know, but I don't know. She didn't judge me. She was like, as a matter of fact, I've done some of that shit too, and I get it, you know, like.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It took me 20 something years to work the steps, but when I did it and I finally, you know, let go of all that garbage, it's my life's been different. And I'm grateful for every day. I just want to live the rest of my life boring.
Yeah.
I'm
Bo-
serious.
Boring can be good.
Yes, I'm bored as shit and I love it.
Yeah.
So
That's also one of the things that people face big time that I hear a lot is when it comes time to stop using. Reason it's so hard is it's life could be boring and you just want something to do. And a lot of people fall back into that pattern.
yeah, that's why I freaking, you know, host that meeting and try to be of service and get a sponsor or send a sponsee, you know, and you're never bored. They'll find something for you to do,
Yeah.
you know. So it's just you got to want it bad enough. That's all. That's what I've learned.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
All right. So if anyone watching or listening likes what they saw or heard, go down below to our subscribe button. Please subscribe to us. Give us a like. We also have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. Under the Facebook group, if you go to events, you'll see all of our Zoom meetings. I highly suggest you come to one of our chill and chats, we call them. And that's all I got for today. So until next time.